All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're gonna get started. Our chairperson is on in traffic on his way, so we're gonna just start with introductions. Let me check our chat here. Oh, that was convenient. We're gonna start with some introductions, and I think we will start with those that are online with us. I'm just wanting to make sure I see everyone. Monica, would you like to begin?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Monica Flynn. I'm the Economic Development Manager with Opportunity Stanislaus.
Thank you. And Vito, would you like to join in?
Yes, thank you very much. Vito Chiesa with Stanislaus County and a farmer out in the Houston area.
Thank you. Kelly, just in time, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Kelly Talent Martin, Chamber Board Member and General Manager for Fashion Fair Mall. Or excuse me, Vintage Fair Mall.
Wow. Where's that
down?
I've never heard you do that before.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we're going to start in the room. We're going to start over here. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Actually, I'll come back. Amanda, I'm going to come back to you at the end. So I'm going to jump to Cecil if that's okay. Cecil, we'll start over here.
Cecil. I don't know who I'm with.
Laura.
I'm Laura Ward with Board of Promotional Marketing. Jennifer Hidalgo with Stanislaus County.
Thank you.
I'm Vanessa Ema, the Director of Sales and Marketing for the DoubleTree by Hilton Modesto.
My name is Gina Fedora. I am the branch manager of Labor Finders Modesto.
Nice. One around you.
I'm back here.
No, either way.
Okay. Me? Okay. Brittany Harker. I am a field rep for Supervisor Chiesa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Shields. I'm the field representative for Chairman of the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors, Manny Graywall.
Dana Ferrer, Modesto Irrigation District.
My name's Alfredo Miranda. I'm the office manager for Congressman Tommy.
We'll skip me all together. Trish Christensen, President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. As I said, our chair is on his way, but I think Amanda, I'm going to invite you to introduce yourself and kick us off. Do we have a PowerPoint ready already?
We do.
Okay.
I think you have to just click on it.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
This one?
Go up to view, or go to slideshow. If you go up to yeah, right there, click on from beginning.
There we go.
Cool. Okay. So, hi everyone. I am Amanda Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of Stanislaus 2030, which is a new-ish public-private partnership that launched officially in June of last summer. So I'm about 7-8 months into the job. And oops, it is driving without me. I don't know what I did for that to happen. Yeah, but we'll just go ahead and leave into that. I'm just yeah, can you minimize?
I'm working on, yeah, I want to get the right one. Look at here. Okay.
Okay. So, oops, nope. Sorry, guys. Get it. So I started in this role of June of last summer, but as many of you know, this work really has been building on the work that started in earnest in the fall of 2021. It was a partnership with Stanislaus Community Foundation, which is where I was housed as the Chief Strategy Officer, and the Stanislaus County VO's office. Our organizations kind of locked arms. We both contributed funds to kind of lead and drive a 10-month sprint process that culminated into an investment blueprint, which we published in the spring of 2022. I look at the investment blueprint as kind of like our North Star. It identifies strategies and tactics to really help us hone in on how to build a more inclusive economy in Stanislaus County. There was a lot of work that went into the investment blueprint, and I believe that Jody Hayes from the county CEO's office actually presented prior to me.
A few weeks ago.
So you have some of the context of the work, and so what I'm going to be doing here today is to give you an update on what we've done since we published the blueprint And since I kind of started the role and kind of the governance structure that we put in place to really help move our work into more than implementation. So this is kind of where we are now. I've been, leading, I would call 3 unique collective impact initiatives, one around small business development, one around talent development, and one around childcare expansion. All of this work involves lots of partners and lots of convening, but the real intention right now today is to take the great ideas that are in the investment blueprint and bring them into fruition. Kind of help take the ideas and really, like, we have the frame, but now we've gotten into the focus. Like, what do we actually need? Who are the owners of this work? What type of resources do they need in order to make them real? And how are we going to measure effectiveness of it? What are those variables that we're really paying attention to? This is our structure. So when I started the position in the summer, one of the immediate tasks was to create a new governance structure. We had, a steering committee that kind of helped drive the process to get the blueprint done. But really, we needed something that was a little bit more democratic to invite community in to participate on the governance level. We had an application process over the summer. We utilized some of the partners that were on the original steering committee to help us identify and ensure that we had good geographic diversity. We had a sector-specific representation on our board, and that we had, it's really a programmatic kind of advisory committee that oversees the initiatives of the work. I am housed at the Community Foundation. They're like the fiscal sponsor for Stanislaus 2030, and they have the fiduciary responsibility for the public-private partnership. These are kind of the priority roles that I play within this entity. So really about program delivery. I actually don't implement any direct programs. I help enable our partners to execute and implement programs that we need that are articulated in the investment blueprint. I'm also playing kind of a resource consortium role when there's a funding opportunity at the state, federal, or even the local level, really ensuring that our partners have what they need to apply successfully, whether it's getting letters of support, whether it's bringing in a grant writer to, we've already done that one time for the recompete grant through the EDA. And so whenever there's an opportunity, making sure that we have our bit ready in the air and that we have the resources in place and we can go for bigger money. Because really this is about growing our local pie. And part of that is about making sure that someone's paying attention and supporting that type of activity. And also policy and advocacy. As these initiatives have gotten into, as they've matured, there are areas where we're like, oh, we may need to provide some more advocacy support around this particular issue. And I'll talk about what we're kind of learning through the lens of some of that in a second. But also about monitoring progress and tracking results. So this is really about ensuring that we have a platform to track how many new businesses are resulting from our work. How many, if this initiative is about the creation of good jobs and access to good jobs, how are we tracking that through the initiatives, but also through direct funding that specific organizations can get as a result.
Oh, you know what? Let me tap the screen.
Okay, there we go. I think everyone's pretty familiar with our why, but this is important to remember that this work is about addressing the fact that over half of our county's population struggles to meet ends meet. I know Jody kind of talked about this at a prior meeting, but we know that a large portion of the families that are impacted have children in their home. So really for us.
Wait. Oh, you did it.
Did I do something? Oh, yeah, I'm doing it. Oh. It's like a ghost clicker. But this is our North Star. This is what we're focused on. It's all about how do we create more economic opportunity through the creation of better jobs in our county and making sure that there's clear and accessible pathways into those good jobs. We know that we have a lot of work to do. Only a third of our jobs in our county actually qualify to be good or promising. I think what's really important to acknowledge with this work is before Stanislaus 2030, we did not have shared agreement on what a good job is in Stanislaus County. We didn't have a way to define it. So what was really helpful by partnering with Brookings, which is an internationally recognized research firm, is that we had a way to articulate, well, what does a good job in Stanislaus County look like based on our market, based on the cost of living for our region. And it's broken down, and there's tons of data on the website if you want to understand the methodology of how we got to $28. And I always like to make sure people know that we're not advocating that we have a minimum wage set. This is a wage threshold that we've established of like what a good job is, so we have a way of understanding what is our current state like.
So then,
So that number has actually gone up. So through North Valley Thrive, which is our SURF region, which is California Jobs First, is the new word for our region, which is San Joaquin, Stanislaus, and Merced. They've actually done more recent research for our region, sub-county and regionally. And based on that, I think we're now at $30 because of inflation. So it's gotten a little more expensive.
the numbers also change.
The numbers here,
The numbers
oh,
change.
yeah, you know what, there, that is like, we're not too worried. We know 40,000, we just know there's a lot of need. Like, I think if we're off by a couple thousand, it's not gonna change like the objective or the vision. We basically, on the whole, we know that if we wanted to reduce the number of kids in struggling families by half, we need 40,000 more good jobs than we currently have. And I always like to preface, that doesn't mean that we're gonna magically create 40,000 brand new jobs. Part of it, and that is the work of Karen Warner with Beam Circular, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the environmental manufacturing work that get catalyzed out of it. That will hopefully spark and create a lot of good jobs. But we also have curiosity around how do you look at the existing jobs in our region and how do you make them better jobs? What does that look like? And we'll talk a little bit about that through the lens of childcare today. But just so you guys, have in your mind, we really are looking at promising and good jobs. So there could be jobs in our county that would be in the gray category, like we're casually just calling other jobs. But there may be things that we could do to make those better jobs. Having more articulated pathways from if you start here, here's how you get into this better job within your organization. Or here's a certificated program that would make you worth more in the marketplace. So we're really thinking strategically about how do you take some of these other jobs and convert them into a promising or a good job. So I talked about the investment blueprint kind of being our North Star. This is what I've been doing over the past year. Really convening and coordinating 3 unique initiatives. I'll get into the detail in just a sec, but really the goal of the work is to coordinate and organize partners around the big ideas, identify and secure funding to advance the work. We have been doing some pilot work specifically in the realm of childcare that we'll share a lot about today, and creating the ability to track and measure success and scale things that are working. And some of this may be looking at our existing environment and identifying bright spots that need more resources to do more. And it's not always about doing new things, but maybe it's about strategic partnerships to make that a more impactful program. So my jurisdiction is really around the governance and capacity building. So we've created kind of this intermediate organization to kind of create and drive project management for all of the work in the investment blueprint. I'm particularly focused on the small business support, talent development, and childcare expansion. Trade and sector development is being owned by Beam Circular, which is Karen Warner's team. She has, I think, 8, 9 people now that is really catalyzing the work about advancing the bioindustrial manufacturing sector. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that today, other than to say that, Beam got $5 million from the state of California as part of the CERC pilot process. They got $1 million NSF grant as a result of our work with the blueprint process. They're in line to apply for $160 million in the fall through the NSF engines program. So like that's the role. That's what our initial hypothesis for building the blueprint was. If we organize and we have a shared plan, can we bring more resources to our region? And can we develop new sectors? Can we create new jobs if we are a little bit more strategic and organized? And at the time we didn't have a plan and we were missing some key entities to kind of help drive the work. And so what came out of the investment blueprint was essentially 2 new organizations, Stanislaus 30 and Beam Circular, and they're both driving the implementation phase of the work. Okay, so what have we done since we published the investment blueprint? And just to kind of help socialize why talent matters is that it's a fundamental driver for building an inclusive economy. We know that, in order to really, many businesses make decisions about relocation or expansion based on the depth of the talent pool locally. So it's super important that we can meet existing industry demand, but also that we have a reputation as a region, that we have a talent pipeline that's ready to scale and expand to meet those needs. So we need both. And so one of the areas that we really unpacked through our research is that our current, we have very leaky talent pipeline. We have a lot of young people and existing workers in the workforce who don't have the right skills or credentials to get into good and lucrative jobs locally. One of my favorite quotes from a young person is just like, the Bay pays. And so they're like, they graduate and they go to the Bay Area. And we had interviewed one of our largest firms locally about their talent needs. And they're like, yeah, we're flying our HR people all over the country to try to find talent. And it just felt like two ships in the night. So young people aren't getting the degrees they need to land those good jobs locally. And HR people are like, there's just no local talent. So it's a huge disconnect and a missed opportunity when we don't have that alignment between our education system and our industry. So we're really trying to build a more cohesive connection. And one of the areas that we saw through our research is that there's a lot of good jobs that aren't getting filled within manufacturing and food production. It's a big, it's one of our largest traded sectors in Stanislaus County. But we know, and some of the most recent research is that there's a big pain within the manufacturing sector. Over the next 5 years, they're going to lose about 25% of their workforce, which equates to about 3,500 positions. And it's not going to be a one-to-one fill. They may need, because most of the people that are retiring are seasoned. They're doing the jobs of 3 people. They've been there a long time. And so they're going to have to hire 3 people to replace some of these workers. So it's a huge pain, and it's a national problem, but this is what it looks like in our region. So what we're doing around that is we have established a very geeky term, but a manufacturing talent to industry exchange. So it's essentially like a sector strategy around the manufacturing sector. We've set up a table. We have about 10 of our largest and mid-sized manufacturing firms kind of leading this work with us. We have Opportunity Stanislaus, Workforce Development. Actually, I can kind of show you. I can do a different slide. Oh, you may need to push the button again. Sorry, Trish.
Okay.
Yep. We have all the players at the table, and they are meeting quite a bit. So we hired on Rick Coffey, who had retired from Gallo and was on our original work group. He's kind of my lead consultant with Gary Bodette on the ground. And we are creating a countywide manufacturing strategic workforce plan. It's never been done before. You know, we have a lot of folks that do research on what their organization can be doing to advance talent development in the manufacturing sector, but we had absolutely no idea, like, what is industry demand today? What is it going to look like in the next 3, 5, 10 years? And we have to back map from that because we need to be prepared to fill those gaps. And this doesn't even count if Theme Circular does their job and starts creating new firms here locally and attracting new firms. They're going to have some of the same workforce demand as our existing food production manufacturing firms. So you take that 3,500 number, and if we do everything right, that number is going to be a lot bigger. We're going to need to train up a lot of people. So just going back.
Amanda, real
Yes.
quick on that slide, I didn't see Stan State. Is there?
You know what? We're engaging Stan State
Okay.
and stuff. But so part of the work right now, we have a team that kind of culminated in the fall. We started convening them in November. We have an accelerated timeline to get this plan done by June. One of the areas that they're creating is a county-specific manufacturing competency model, which is another geeky term, but essentially it identifies at the basic level, what do our K-12 partners need to own in regards to core competency development? A lot of soft skill stuff, financial literacy, different things that could help science and math and whatever it may need for the manufacturing sector. And as you go up another layer, it's like MJC, what role does the community college play? What role does a CSU and university play? And then you go up higher, some of it needs to be owned by industry themselves because it's proprietary training programs that needs to be done in-house. So being super clear at like each layer, here are the core competencies we need. And oh, guess what? No one's teaching this right now. So how do we build that into the system?
It'd be great. Cecil could attest to this when we were both working here and engaging Stan State. We saw a disconnect with MJC ag students leaving and going to other schools because the ag degree Stan State offered didn't correlate with what was needed and for local. And so they were going to, Davis and Texas Tech and, Fresno, Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, all over the place. And one of the things that I think we had 2 different Stan State presidents tell us, like, they got really excited. They engaged with the ag department and they said, our professors are tenured and they don't want to learn
Yeah.
new things or teach new courses. And that
And,
was
you
the
know, some of
problem.
the Original pain points in this work, it's really hard sometimes to engage with those larger education systems, but you know, everyone that showed up there, they're in earnest, and I think that they're, because we're creating the space for them to really build, like when I say accelerated workshops, like we had 2 half-day workshops last month, we have 3 this month, and all the industry players are in the room with OS and MJC and workforce development and the bigger school districts, like they're building together. And it's great because they were building these feedback loops that didn't really exist before, where they can just ask like, hey, what does the adult education programs do at the school districts? Why aren't we tapping into that? Like, that's a really interesting space that we could be designing more flexible programs that maybe if we need something at MJC, it's a more sophisticated program, it's gonna take a year or 2 to build, but we can pilot something here. So really thinking about how do we, it's like from good to great, like some programs may require higher degrees and some may just need a certificated program, and we could do something like to test the waters with other partners. So I wanted to just, this is a lot of words, but I highlighted some things that I thought were really important. So, you know, we've done a lot of this work to the left. It's about, you know, like recruiting everyone to get on the team, starting to build out that manufacturing competency model. We did a lot of planning about like, how are we going to design this accelerated work groups, these workshops to get to a complete plan by June. And it's a big commitment of time. Folks are really, you know, coming to the table like, yep, we need this. And the reason they're saying yes is because of that 3,500 number. Like they're feeling it now. And really mapping out, well, what are those jobs? You know, we hear a lot about maintenance mechanics, and that's true, but also we're electrifying the country. Like electricians are going to be a huge demand. And at the, you know, currently we're just graduating like 9 people a year from energy. So really thinking like, what does it take to get to that level that we, and is it, who are the providers now and what do they need to do more? We are really focusing right now on creation of this like countywide workforce plan. So it kind of, it articulates like the workforce, like the industry demand forecasting for that. And one of the things I'm learning is not everyone knows how to do this, even on the industry side. And, you know, even some of our larger firms who would seem to be more sophisticated at it, it's challenging to try to predict what you're going to need in 3 years, and things change. And we know particularly with the manufacturing sector, there's some added pain points. Young people don't want to go into manufacturing. There's a perception issue that the jobs are not good. So we have to pay attention to, well, what do you need to change within the system, the job itself to be more attractive? How do we get more people to want to go into this? And what type of on-the-job training programs do we need in order to accelerate that? We also know like we're missing some ingredients around kind of that coordination, that sector ownership, and Health Force Partners is a great analog of organizing that's happening around the health care sector, kind of an intermediary that coordinates activities between workforce training programs and the industry themselves. We kind of need that for the manufacturing sector. We're realizing like it's too big of a sector to not have that type of structural support. And there could be an organization that already exists locally that could play that role, or we need to create something new. But we realize we're missing some nodes in the ecosystem. And we're also, can you move just this little?
Yeah.
So
Sometimes when I move it's when you're clicking, it doesn't work. So I'm trying to be selective.
So we're doing all this work intentionally now. We'll have that plan, kind of the draft really done by May. And the intention is then to build the capacity for our partners to implement work we need them to do. So we've identified some large buckets already of like, yeah, we're gonna need to organize activity around the perception issue, some marketing and communications. There's some plug and play work at the national level about building the pipeline into manufacturing. We just need to bring that stuff. You know, so there's some things that are like easier, low hanging fruit that we should just be doing naturally. And some things that are gonna be way harder, but we're conditioning folks to start doing it, like developing curriculum together. Like we have someone at the training program at Gallo, locked arms with someone at MJC and co-teaching, co-designing together. Like we want to see more of that. Same thing with programming in high schools, like sharing space, co-designing curriculum, applying for funding together, you know, just more collaboration in advance of manufacturing jobs. So that's what we've been working on with talent. And I'm really happy to have, you know, workforce development at the table with us because they're paying attention to the lens of like, hey, how do we organize what we're already doing to advance this work? What do we need to do? Same thing.
So,
Yeah.
And you said that you're happy to have more you. I don't recall something you presentation.
We presented when we published the investment blueprint, Jody Hayes, Mary Ann Cannon, and I, and Karen Warner. But I agree with you, we need to come back.
Particularly with this.
Yeah, I'd like.
Because this is much complete than what we.
Yeah, that's actually on my list of like top priority presentations I'd love to get in front of the
If I
board.
can help you with that.
We endorse, she's lovely, and Chris, her, like,
Yeah.
they're right there with us, they're helping to lead this work, but I think it's time to show. I agree. Okay, so I'm gonna spend a lot of time talking about small business because of the group we're here today. So we, through our work with Stanislaus 2030, we know we are lagging in business dynamism, but really it's about, we don't see it comparatively to the state as many starts, business starts as we'd like to see. So innovation, small business development is job creators. Like we are really invested in making sure we have a healthy small business ecosystem because we know that's where jobs are. And we know that this is how we create a more inclusive economy. Some of the key data points from our work is 85% of businesses are owned by men. So how do we diversify that? How do we see, more people from underserved communities getting into the programs that exist already? Like, what do we need to do to make sure people can access these programs? Is it a language barrier? Is it a location of programming? Do we need to put some things virtually? All of the above. So really thinking about how do we make it a more cohesive and healthy small business ecosystem. So one of the first things we did in the fall was we hired Next Street, and they're kind of like the Brookings of the small business space. They are rooted in Chicago, but they've been doing work all over the country, and they had just published a report funded by the Irvine Foundation that identified just some really elegant strategies in the business service organization space and workforce development, how they can come together to really advance small business starts and scaling. So we hired them, and we have been doing work.
Because I moved
I'm
everything.
sorry.
Oh, not you. Go ahead.
Okay, so just, remember, like, this is all building on top of work that had already happened. The blueprint identified some key strategies that we should hone in on. And what we realized starting in March 2023, before I was even in the job, but I think Trish, you were at that first meeting where we got together and say like, okay, so now what? We have this blueprint. There's some cool ideas in there about financial coaching and literacy development for entrepreneurs.
No, I did it.
Okay.
Sometimes when I click, it doesn't. I don't know what the difference is.
So what we realized right away is like we couldn't do a pilot within the small business investment area because we didn't have shared agreement on what strategies were most important. And so I realized right away that like we needed to get there. Like we needed to have a more comprehensive strategy, taking the ideas in the blueprint and organizing them around, well, what type of businesses are we talking about? Like, are we talking about Main Street? Are we talking about suppliers? Are we talking about high growth firms? We didn't know. And our partners also had a lot of confusion about who was doing what already. It was pretty apparent, like, I'm already doing this culturally, competent program over here, or I'm doing this. And what we realized right away is our partners needed to see, like they needed help understanding what everyone was doing. So that was kind of priority one. So I actually started convening over the summer with Yolanda Moraz from Stanislaus Equity Partners, just to start socializing that we're going to work as a collaborative. We're going to start mapping out our roles within this ecosystem. And then I brought in help with Next Street in November. But what was really telling in this process, what we learned right away is one, we all define small businesses differently.
I was waiting for you to say that. That was
It was
fascinating.
shocking actually how varied it was. Our SBDC has a government determined definition based on, 500 employees or a certain level of growth of year. And then we've got Stanislaus Equity Partners like, well, we're talking about micro businesses. So like 9 employees or less. Workforce development, they're honing in, I think, like 30 employees. So vastly different. And that's important because you design programs based on your end user. And if we all have different end users, we may not have the right programming in place to meet the needs of the community. So that was huge. And we also didn't have a really good understanding of like, well, how many businesses do we even have in our county? And where are they? And what are they doing? And what are they providing? And how big are they? So we did a lot of that work. I just wanted to throw this up just to give you a sense of the collaborative table that we've established. You can see with Doris and Chris from Workforce Development are locked arms with us. We've got the county, we've got Herman from Valley Sierra SBDC, just making sure that we're super aligned in driving forward this process. And I'm just gonna share some of the, we brought together partners in January to really go deep in some data. We had a full day retreat on February 28th. It was a long day. But people stuck with it, and we had entrepreneurs in the room as well, but really to help get to that strategic focus, so we can have a comprehensive strategy that we can achieve. And then now, actually tomorrow, we're meeting with folks to test out we're unveiling some stuff, and I'll give you a sneak peek today. But to get clear on who's gonna do what resources do you need, and how can we help you get there? So, just a flavor of some of the data that gave us pause and was super interesting for us is in Stanislaus County, the majority of businesses have less than 9 employees. Actually, many of them are, sole proprietor businesses. So I just think it's important to understand that also that the majority of where the jobs are, total employment, is Main Street and supplier businesses. High growth firms they don't have a lot of employees. They make good money, and the people that work there are doing well. But if we're talking about access to jobs, we're very interested in Main Street suppliers. We know that the majority of the work is, in Main Street, the top industries in our region. So it's just good to kind of get a sense of what's the numbers? What is our universe of small businesses even look like? And then we also spent some time trying to figure out, well, who are we talking about? What and how should we delineate who we focus our attention on, and what do we need to know to make those decisions? We really work with the group to understand, okay, so who's not accessing resources? Who are we not seeing as business owners in our community? What are the variants in programming across our county? So we consolidate a lot of supports in our more urban environment. How do we ensure that the rural communities can access programs as well? We know that based on the data, we have a lower concentration of micro business starts, and that's, when you see new launches of businesses create more jobs. And we know that we're probably missing some programs to help cultivate that. We have a high concentration of supplier businesses, which is great. We know that could be a huge job creator for our region, but many of them lack the capital to grow and to get bigger contracts. So we actually started kind of delineating well, what are the different needs based on if you're a Main Street business, what are your common pain points? What are the capital needs you would maybe, what are you focusing on if you're a restaurant versus I make this and I sell it to other businesses? You have different needs. And so really honing in on the type of even from a financing standpoint, a Main Street business needs working capital for payroll. But if you're a supplier business and you're trying to get into procurement, contracts with maybe government or larger anchor institutions locally, like a hospital or an education provider, and you sell coffee or you sell some interesting, Valente coffee.
Yep.
You're very curious about procurement. So how do you get those big contracts? Well, what we uncovered is a lot of the supplier businesses don't know how. They don't, and they definitely don't have the right financing product, because they need bridge capital to cover their costs so they can take on that contract that often need to have cash on hand in order to meet that first part. So learning a lot about kind of what's missing and what's needed.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Question for you. I don't know if I'm just missing it, but don't see a lot of ag-based business. Is that the supplier?
They would fall within
supplier, things like that.
they're actually this one, they're under supplier.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if you could move that, but we are honing in on our business focus around Main Street and supplier businesses. We've really, we've identified what are the primary industries within those categories. We know Main Street represents such a large population of over half of our businesses fall into the Main Street category. It's also where a lot of BIPOC and women owners start. And we know that there's a foundation for more growth if we have different types of programs in the ecosystem. But they have some very real issues in regards to access to capital. And I'll share a slide a little bit later about the gaps in financing locally. The quality of the services that are offered and the depth and the frequency of those services. They have a lot of one-off programs, but they get to 10 people and they're one and done. So we want to go deep on really good programming that we can co-design with our partners to meet this particular population. And then this theme came up a lot about centralized resources across like all of the programming. If you were to start a business today in Kansas County, you just Googled like a lot of different things come up. It's not clear. And depending on where you live, you may have different restrictions and permitting. It's not all housed in one spot where you have like clarity of like, okay, I live in Patterson and I'm starting a food business. What do I need to know in order to do this and be successful? You know, getting my business license, understanding what are the environmental regulations with the county, and just all of those processes. Like there's a big need for like, can we just have one place where it doesn't matter where you live in our county, it's all there, super transparent, and we understand, like, I know how to start a business in our county. And then on the supplier side, so much of this is about procurement readiness and making sure we have the right programs in place. So if you're a supplier that wants to grow and you want to start selling your product to a large, you know, like MJC or the county or another municipality, you have the technical systems, like quality technical systems to make procurement ready, and that we have the right financing products in place so you can get there. Okay, so we did a quick landscape of our capital. You know, what does the financial landscape look that supports businesses? Very traditional lending through traditional banks. Although we, in the last couple of years, have seen growth in our community development financial institutions. Multiple credit unions have gotten their designations to be CDFIs, which is wonderful. That's a very specific designation through the, the Fed that allows them to provide what we would call mission products for under-resourced businesses. They can do much more interesting things, but they're very new in their designation and they kind of don't know how to drive their car. So we want to help build their capacity to develop and design the right programs to meet the needs of our business owners. We also have, I just learned this last week, I think when it comes to venture capital in our community, we're like less than 0.2%. In fact, we just call it zero. Like there's zero VC funding that comes into our region. But also there's not a pipeline of businesses that like are ready to accept that type of capital. So we want to, and as you can see, there's no like incubators or accelerator programs for businesses to get like the training and the financial acumen they need to get that type of like, so we're missing some core ingredients that can really help our businesses.
So the local banks don't want one for them?
They do, but most of their loans are really large. They're like 250K or above. A lot of the startups only need like 25 to 50K to get going. So the CDFI is what we're talking about is creation of a loan fund. So if businesses could go through some sort of TA programming, it de-risks them from investing in some businesses that may on paper not have the credit or may not. You have to look perfect in order to get some of the loans through the traditional banks. So that's a barrier that we want to overcome through working with our. I will tell you, like, I've had to learn a lot in the last 6 months. Like, I know this is like a waterfall of information and we're all learning alongside each other. Like I'm learning new terms. We're trying to socialize. Like, what does this mean now that we can start to see the whole a little bit? How do we interpret this into real programs? So I love this slide because I think it's really helpful to understand in a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem. These are all the roles that need to be played, and some of them are played by multiple organizations. And in the summer, we did an exercise where we had all the partners in the room kind of self-identify where they fall within these different roles. So like all the way over to the far right and service providers, they're providing direct support, like business support services. Maybe they're a chamber and providing networking support. There could be actual, in-person kind of education training programs. Capital, that's like the financial institutions providing, whether it's loans or equity or dollars. Innovation. So what's missing? What are the new products? We don't have incubators or accelerators. Is anyone building, creating those new products? Capacity. Who's investing in the actual business service organizations themselves to do quality work? I'll tell you right now, no one. Funder, this is more like funding of the ecosystem, kind of like what I'm doing in partnership with the county right now, just for the work that's happening. Convener, bringing all the partners together to help see all this, and advocate. If there's something that emerges through our work, we're like, street permitting is a great example where we're understanding there's some bottlenecks in food vendors, particularly pop-up vendors that don't have access to commissary kitchens, and they're getting dinged, and like, what do we need to do to make that easier for folks? An investigator, folks that are kind of doing this research to understand, like, okay, looking forward, what do we need? What are our gaps? And so we did, like, we socialized these concepts, and then we had partners kind of try to map out where they're at. And as you can see, we have some gaping holes, and some people, you know, I actually think play multiple roles, and they're not like saying that here, but
Actually think several of us, both the chambers, all of the chambers, we were in multiple places. I think we were streamlining into groups
Yeah.
to brought it back down to one to start.
so from your perspective, where's your sweet spot at the chamber? Do you think this reflects kind of where you'd like to be as a convener?
I know I had marked convener, advocate, and service provider on some, but the list got like streamlined a little bit, which is fine. We all have
Chambers
different
are
pieces.
so important. They're connectors. Like you're sometimes the first people, like people call you first. And
More than
you're-
you know.
And
It's
you are
fine.
like a major referral
Yeah.
source. And that's huge. Like when we talk about like that one-stop shop, that centralized place where people intuitively call their chambers. Like it's natural. So we have to like, okay, that's a natural role that chambers play. How do we help you do more of that? Or what do you need to do it better, you know?
Mhm.
But obviously, like, we really acknowledge, like, there is just missing supports for organizations. Like, so if we identified some concrete programs that we want to help get developed, we owe it to our partners to help them get what, like, if they need a consultant to come in to help them build it, we want the best. Like, we want the best programs. Like the work that the Gospel Mission did around social enterprise, like we invested in you in the planning process of the foundation
Yep.
to build that, like that model out. And then you went and hired other consultants to help. Like
Yeah.
you needed that type of support. And now look at you,
Yeah.
like pervading all over the county.
I know.
You're a model.
Yeah.
So
Only
yeah,
made more money.
you know, I think part of our work is just really helping people through a very succinct, elegant way, understand what our pain is and where our opportunities are. And so we're really looking, you know, through the lens and like, yeah, we have some strengths. We know we have some gaps in capital. And we know that there's some enabling environment stuff we could do around permitting. We could do a better job of showing like everyone what currently exists and how to get access to it. But there's also new things that we need to. And that's where we're coming in with this collaborative team. So this is kind of, and this is what you're gonna see, Trish, tomorrow, but like, we're really honing in on like, this is our comprehensive strategy for small business development. By 2030, any person who wants to start, sustain, or scale a business will have what they need to be successful. And like, I've kind of walked you through why we're honing in on Main Street and supplier businesses. For both of those target demographics, there are distinct initiatives that we need to get into place. And we need to work very succinctly with our partners to understand like, what part of this do you want to know? And what role do you want to play? And what do you need to get there? The loan fund, Valley First Credit Union is already in the works of establishing that fund. They're in conversations with partners about funding into that fund. Stand 2030 has a stake in what's the criteria for that fund? Like, let's help design like what are the key objectives of that fund? What businesses are we talking about? So like, that's where we have a lot of curiosity, but everyone plays a different role within that ecosystem. Someone needs to own this concept around a one-stop shop. We really need that, and we need to help our partners build it. And we all have to work together, because if you're gonna be like a strong referral entity, you gotta know everything, and you need to know what your partners are doing.
So Amanda, that says we want to start or sustain. So, small businesses that are struggling, it's the same, you need to try to help them.
Yeah, to help them innovate, and some of it is, we learned a lot during COVID. Like some businesses were able to adapt really quickly and others couldn't, their business models didn't work.
You know, back to your slides at the very beginning, when you had how many small businesses there are in that. Fairly large number, but it'd be interesting to know how many of them are struggling.
Yeah, that's where workforce development is very helpful, because they have that data. And we actually reviewed it at one point, but
Yeah.
let's bring that up with Doris, because it was super helpful, because that is the role of workforce development, is they come in and try to help provide supports just in time when they get data to suggest, because certain industries.
So some need financing, but mostly they need mentoring.
Yeah. One of the first big ahas through empathy interviews we did when we designed the blueprint was around business acumen. Like, really solid financial coaching. You know, that the access to professional networks. When you think about when you start a business, you know someone. And it's like almost an informal network of people in your community that help support you, like, oh, I know a guy that's doing this. And so that may exist for some people naturally, but how do we get other people into those really strong informal networks?
One of the things that I found when I was in the chamber, that most small businesses do not have a business plan or a marketing plan. And it would be helpful, I think, if you have templates that were developed, you know, that can be manipulated, but at least the template
Is
to
there,
start with.
that would be a great tactic for the one-stop shop concept of just accessible, easy plug and play things that they can do. The other area that we're really honing in on is the role of like large anchor institutions, like businesses supporting other businesses. So we call them the meds and the ends, the hospitals and the colleges, like getting them to commit. Like what percent of your procurement can you commit to being local and supporting the local supply chain? One is it means local suppliers don't have to ship things as far. They have local, you know, and it's good for a lot of reasons, but it supports the local. So an example would be like San Diego. They've organized a whole anchor strategy. They've convened, they've mapped out their supply chain locally. What are the top things that these large institutions are buying? What percent of that could easily be focused on local suppliers? And can we get a commitment of like, hey, 2 to 5% of your purchasing, you're gonna keep it. And just make a campaign around that. And I think that's a really healthy strategy and you can calculate like the economic value of that. And I feel like that's where we need to get to. There's a couple pre-development things we need to do, like map supply chain, and that's where STANSLS 2030 can help. But then we need our partners to kind of commit to that type of process. And we also need to help build up the readiness of local businesses that want to get into that game. They need that type of capacity. And you know, I hate the word makerspace. We're going to change that because it's not really a makerspace that we've honed in on, but more about incubation space. So you can think about, you may have heard of like kitchen incubators. In our county, we have a lot of food businesses. That's how a lot of people get into entrepreneurship, is selling food. And so thinking about creating more conditions for them to prosper is space, access to a commissary, putting marketing support on site, putting, you know, the SBDC on site, and creating kind of a holistic wraparound support. You see like shared working spaces in other venues too, and we really like that idea of shared space and with a real eye towards entrepreneurship.
And easy to navigate, how do you get your food service permits and the county to approve your coffee cart, for example? I'm just asking for a friend, but you know.
I have a question on time. Like how much time?
Yeah, I'm watching you. You're good. You got 20 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. I was worried about that. Do you guys have any other questions before I move on to?
20 minutes still gives you 10 for Q&A.
But like any questions you have, just keep, I like this informal.
I saw how long your deck was yesterday.
I'm not-
Like, we're gonna invite her to start really quick.
Yeah. So I would say, I think childcare for last week, and I really think it's important to talk about it because we are looking at childcare through an entrepreneurial lens. One of the most striking elements of our original blueprint is we realized that in order to meet workforce demand, we need 36,000 more childcare slots than we currently have. That's a really big number, and it feels almost like I don't even know where to begin. We have engaged in a robust process over the past 6 months. We partnered with an organization, Nurture, to really help us build out an implementation strategy around entrepreneurship within small businesses. So honing down from that 36,000 elevation of need, we are now honing in on infants and toddlers because that is what's most on fire for families. It's care for young children. It's most expensive. People don't like to put babies in centers. They'd rather them be in a home. So that's where we saw a really nice marriage between our focus on entrepreneurship and childcare. Is we are doubling down on home-based childcare businesses. We know we need about 17,000 more infant and toddler slots in our county to meet family demand. And we have gone through a process over the past 6 months to pilot work to really sense into like, okay, what's holding people back from getting their childcare license? How many people are in the shadows and they don't actually have their license that we can bring in? And where are the areas in our county that have the highest need? And what are those service linkages we need across systems? Like, how do we work strategically with workforce development and the county office of ed, which is the local entity that's kind of mandated to help with referrals for childcare and business starts. So we have a very audacious goal. We need 1,500 new childcare businesses by 2030-ish. And we have identified a plan to get there. So we partnered with Nurture, which is an organization that's really focused on the economic mobility of childcare providers. They're a nonprofit. They've established, it's a whole model based on the business acumen of childcare entrepreneurs. There's a lot of professional development around having quality programs. They don't talk about how to have a successful business. So we know that for a lot of folks, they can't just show up, at any time. So we're really thinking about how do we reduce barriers, and we Nurture has really identified a way using the smartphone. So it's an application that you download in the phone. It leads you through a 12-week process. We've designed it into being cohorts. So when we have 25 people in a cohort, we start. It's in English and in Spanish. There's a coach for each cohort. They meet virtually once a week together as a cohort, and then there's self-driven curriculum that is rolled out what they need just in time each week in very digestible chunks. By week 2, they've already submitted all of their paperwork to get their childcare license and their business license, and they're starting work on their business plan. And by the end of the process, the intention is that they have their childcare license, they have their plan, and they're ready to start taking kids. If they make it through our process and get their childcare license, then we provide a $2,500 startup grant. So we were funded from the county to get 25 through the process and to use it as a learning lab to see what are the big barriers that would get this, prevent us from doing stuff. The reason why we're really focused on this play is we know that if done right, in-home childcare entrepreneurs can make good money. In our county, they can gross like $75K a year, making around $55K a year. But that means a few things. They need to have full enrollment, which is around 8 kids, depending on the age and a lot of rules around this. They need to accept every dollar that's due to them and taking on children that qualify for subsidies. That's how you make this a good job. And you could be a family of 4 in our county making $96K a year and you qualify for a subsidy. So there's a huge population of families that qualify for subsidies that could help benefit these entrepreneurs that have it. So this is the process we've engaged in over the past 6 months. So much convening. I can't tell you how many people we've talked to, everyone and their mother, and you'll see it. We're producing a report. Actually, next week, it's a 50-page report on everything you need to know about how to expand childcare entrepreneurship in Stanislaus County, family-based businesses. Our intention is really we've been really honing in on how do we identify and align partnerships with community services agency, families that are on welfare to work that maybe are resistant to go back to the workforce because they have young children. Do they want to be childcare providers? Can we help them get a childcare business? Families that are participating in workforce development or farm workers that are doing training programs at Central Valley Opportunity Center. Do they have wives that are already informally providing care for children but not making a lot of money? How do we help them get their business license and get their childcare license so they could be making money? That's the goal. So just some results from our pilot. We have trained to date over 31 individuals. 26 of them completed the course, 21 are licensed, and 17 are in business and taking on kids. So we've actually created approximately 200 new childcare slots in our pilot. We generated around 4.8 million in new economic activity for our county when you calculate what those businesses represent for our local workforce. And we've identified some issues along the way. If we do our jobs right and we get about 150 new businesses a year, we are going to overly burden the state licensing agency. They are not ready for the amount of capacity that we're going to create. So we're bringing that up to the state about how do we improve the licensing process. They only have one staff person between Fresno and Stockton.
And that's the reality right now. There's one.
They have to go to every home, as they should, because childcare should be highly regulated. And we need them to do it for us. We've already at the beginning of our process, it took a few weeks. Now it's taking 4 to 6 months when they submit their paperwork. to get them to come and check it. So we know it's gonna really exhaust them if we get to 150. We've also learned that we have about $10 million in subsidy money that's not being spent each year because there's not enough supply.
Man, this might be like a really easy to answer question for you, but with parents that are, like you said, already at home taking care of children, do any of their own children qualify into that number, or is that something that's broken out where you
No, we
won't
don't
qualify, right?
subsidize families to take care of their children,
Right,
but they can take care of friends and family's children
gotcha.
and they get subsidized for
Gotcha.
that. So, but I've got, some states actually do that, by the
Gotcha.
way. It's a very progressive play.
Yeah.
To subsidize families who are taking care of their children and other children, but we do not currently.
Do you know if those children then affect the rate of how many other kids they can have in the home? So if 8 is like the max they can have at a certain age, if they've already got 1 or 2.
If they have 2 grown children.
Yeah.
I think they have
They
to
would
be
carry.
counted.
It's
I
based
think.
on, like, people, like adults per
Like
child
ratio,
ratio,
right?
so you could have 2 infants, like 2 toddlers and 3 like, school age children, it's like a math game,
Mhm.
and there's a sweet spot, I wanted to like the ages that you want. Landlords have been an issue too, even though it's illegal, like you, having a childcare business out of your home is a conditional use of your home. So there was a state law in 2020 that made that so, but we had in our first cohort, 7 of the entrepreneurs had landlords that raised their rents. Like, right? So that's an awareness issue. They may not be aware of the law, but those women dropped out immediately. They had precarious situations. So those are just, that's the advocacy piece that we have a lot of curiosity about, like what can we do to help inform folks of like, this is the rules around this and let's do our part. So this is where we're focusing our attention. We've identified 7 priority zip codes with the highest need, like we need 334 new businesses in this neighborhood of Minnesota, that's Sirius is a hotspot. But we've identified kind of the neighborhood name, the zip code, number of new businesses that are needed, what's the poverty level within those zip codes? How many workers are there, so we know that there's demand? And is there a prime age employment gap? Do we have a population of folks that could be working or in training programs that aren't engaged? That could potentially be tapped to want to start childcare. And so that's how it doesn't, we're open to everyone. We need so much childcare in our county. We want everyone to get in the game. But those zip codes are on fire. So when you think about outreach and recruitment, we're going to work strategically with school districts in those areas. And we already are. We've got a full pilot series right now. And we're working on that. So that, I just said a ton of stuff. There's a report that we're releasing next week. I'd love to get your mailing list so I can get them all, or I'll just send
I
you
can
them.
bounce
Yeah. It's a 50-page report, so pour a drink, sit down, anything you want to know about childcare in our county. It's super interesting, and I have to say, it's been like an investigative journey. We've learned a ton. Even our partners that this is what they do every day. They're like, I didn't know that workforce development had training programs that we could, or how do all these things connect, or how do we get MJC involved in a very strategic way? And we've identified populations where like current MJC students in the child care program, like once they've taken this class, they should take our business startup course and they can immediately be in business. And so we're talking to faculty there. The faculty there is also exploring, well, maybe we need to make a math class for childcare providers. Like, what do they need to know in order to start? They're just being super specific on how our partners can show up in a very strategic way. So let's stop and just let's have a conversation. Is there anything that you'd like to know more about, or observations or questions? Hey, you should talk to this person. Yes.
Is there support for childcare workers after they've established their, licensing and they started their job? My mom is actually a licensed home daycare. And I remember when the state grants came out for them, I helped her apply for one and it was so convoluted, I don't know.
Was that through the SBDC? Yeah, ours are easy.
But you know what I mean? Like, is there support if there are state grants or federal grants? Because they are so, obviously, there's so many regulations. Like, my mom would never have been able to do that on this.
How big is her license? Is it for
She's a small, she's a small provider. She's actually looking
to grow?
to
Okay,
grow.
so when we have that 1,500 number, we're assuming we're going for like 1,000 new businesses. And we also want to convert 500 existing small licenses into big licenses, because a small one can have 8 kids, a big one can have 16, but they need a different financial product. So they may need access to a different type of loan to remodel their home or possibly buy a different home. So we're exploring ideas in other communities where they've actually partnered with financial institutions to create the right product for childcare providers that want to grow. So I would love to interview your mom to talk about like, hey, like what would it take to get you another bigger license? Because it may just be she needs like a new toilet or a bigger bathroom, or she may need, I don't know. But I think that that's a really compelling strategy that like we need all of the above. One of the original ideas that we had too was around a lot of families share nannies or people may not have a home where they could provide childcare, but they want to care for kids. So do we create a work on cooperative for childcare providers? It's like Mary Maid but nannies, and they own it themselves, you know? So thinking about different ways, and they could go to meetings, they could be like, go has a big event and there's a lot of parents and there's a nanny there from this thing. So there's been really cool ideas. We just have to. So, but we're starting with family-based entrepreneurship, and it's like from good to great. Like we see a lot of opportunity along the way. And one of the ideas that Trish we've talked about is, so you know, we're all about making it a better job. A lot of these families need retirement benefits. So like the multiple employer programs that the chamber's trying to get off the ground, it would be so awesome to have something special for these childcare entrepreneurs to like tap into that as small business.
We need to reconnect on that because I need the nonprofit conversation.
Yes. Okay. So there's really, I mean, these are businesses. So like, how do we help them build their wealth? Like what we just need to constantly be thinking about, okay, they need to be saving for retirement. They like, what are the products that we can create and connect to these entrepreneurs that traditionally haven't made a lot of money, but we want them to. Childcare should be a good job. So that's the goal.
I'm going to add in just a moment that I got to witness. We had an opportunity when Lieutenant Governor was here. They did breakout sessions throughout the day, and I sat in on the one around small business development support. And Amanda got to share this child care piece, and it moved her to tears for a moment, which was amazing to watch the moment happen. And really interesting that, and I've shared with a few people, what is coming out of Stand 2030 is our community's ability to think outside the box and come up with and recognize things that aren't being recognized or brought up anywhere else. And when she caught her breath and finally spoke, she said, I've never heard anyone talk about this before. So our community is doing amazing things and picking up on amazing cues, coming up with plans.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also want to call you out for, like, when we started the business collaborative work, like Trish brought up a pain point for online, for like folks didn't have a way to sell their products. And so she had this idea, it was like shovel ready. We had this collaborative team. So we have like the city of Modesto in the room listening. And we all as partners were like, we want to support Trish to build out this platform. And like almost instantaneously, we were all able to get your letters and we got that funding really quickly. So
the marketplace had never seen anyone do that either, get partner support behind that. But that one, we can't lose sight of the fact that the city's funding me once. I need corporate partners by fall.
And so when we think about like, how do we make this work sane? It's about,
Should say corporate or community partners.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be, thinking about what's working and learning, and then figuring out like, well, how do we support our partners to do more? Which sometimes it's like, hey, we're gonna write a letter of support. We found this grant opportunity. Hey, chamber, we want you to do way more of that. And so it's not like I keep coming back to the place of like helping our partners do better work and helping them focus. So we're not tripping over each other, and we have clarity and purpose. We have a shared objective.
Hey, Amanda, I have a question for you. Brittany and I were just talking about it a little bit. I have a background in insurance. And so when we started talking about this a little bit, and you start to think about the insurance that's required for, you know, when you set up a small business, right? A lot of times they're pretty easy to get, but California's going through an insurance crisis, and especially around homeowners insurance. So how does that affect with a lot of childcare providers in home and their insurances and things like that. Have you
Yeah.
guys experienced any hardships there?
We
and things like that?
Heard anything yet, but we're still early.
Mhm.
And I think, I really think that's gonna come. We heard it, actually, the insurance piece came up in our small business collaborative work. When we were interviewing, business owners of Hopedale, particularly, because they're getting counted
Yep.
in like the
Wildfire.
wildfire zone. So their insurance rates are going through the roof, and we expect that to be a continued theme.
Yeah.
So, that's a great example of something what we may need to organize from an advocacy standpoint. As we start rolling out this work, like a lot of those things are gonna start. And we just need to be super clear on like, what are those pain points? Who needs to say what? How do we get in the ear of folks that can actually affect change? But, you know, like I wouldn't have known 6 months ago, like, oh, the way this law around home-based childcare and the way it's getting interpreted with landlords, there's a disconnect. Maybe there's something we can do there. Maybe there's like something low touch but high impact that we could do to build awareness. I think there's gonna be a ton of those things that emerge.
The more you do something, the more these are gonna come up.
Yeah.
So since you brought it up, I wanted to just touch on this for a second if I could. We are building this out. What I really want to take every opportunity to share is this. It is something that we're administering, but it is not tied to the city. This is a Stanislaus County and surrounding region opportunity. There are no landlines affiliated with having this online platform. It is free to the entire business community. And we're targeting small and micro business as well. It's not limited to that, but the variety of businesses that were early adopters jumping in on this has been fascinating to see.
Yeah, what type of businesses are taking advantage of it? Are
Well,
they
we've
like
been all over.
food?
Yep, I've had food, soap, candles, art.
This is super cool. I've never heard of something that I'm really.
We've had a business as far away as Copperopolis reach out. They could not join because all of their product line was CBD based and that's not allowed on the credit line. We have another one that is on here. They have a CBD line. They're just not allowed to put it on here. So they're still on here. Have a couple of consultants on here.
You know, you have a captive audience now of like all these end users and like the data that you can generate to see like, are they getting more hits? And also, what else do they need to like close that deal? Like, you know, this is step one, but there could be other capacity and supports that they need besides exposure.
So some of these are trying to do their business for the first time outside of more than just their home. I mean, and we're hearing some of those comments. This also toggles just by a button right here and the whole thing goes into Spanish. I'm challenging them to work on other languages. I'm presenting on this with the marketplace founder at the California Economic Development Conference next week.
Very, like, this is super cool. You know, some of the business owners that we interviewed, a lot of them don't have actual full-time staff for like 1090, so it's contract workers. So, or they don't have a business license and they're kind of working in shadows. So when you think about, okay, how do we identify some of those businesses that want to come in and get a business license? And how do we create a value proposition for them that if you get your license, you qualify for so many grants like that you can't tap into right now. And also, the idea around like just helping them get exposed, like there's just so many opportunities, like low hanging fruit, like, okay, how do we get those 1090s turned into full-time workers? And yeah.
So, which you won't have heard this yet, you do not have to have a business license to join this. It's really open to anybody. Herman just came on with a small contribution to get behind some of the promotion and branding on this. For the next 3 months, we want this to spread and grow quicker so we get more funders, so we can get a bigger license and carry this on longer. Part of that arrangement is for us to start recommending them to all the services available there that they don't know exist at SBDC. So it's one of the first pieces we're building together on business support resources through the marketplace. That just happened this
It's like
week.
a beginning one-stop shop. You
Yeah.
don't know it, but you're.
We're trying.
But like, that is to me a great example of when collaboration is like in practice, right? It's that strategic partnership. So, I know like Valley Sierra SBDC, rather than doing their own programming, contracts with Stanford Equity Partners or the Latino Chamber to do culturally competent, you know, business support programs. And so, what we hope to do in our next meeting is like, we've identified, you know, the big ideas what are the core roles that we need our partners to play to get them into implementation? And some of them may want to partner strategically as a collaborative, like, hey, we want to own this initiative and here each of the roles we're going to play. And this is what it's going to take from a money standpoint to make it happen. You know, there are resources that exist locally sometimes that can be realigned, but also part of the strength of having a collaborative is like it's easier to apply for funding at the state and federal level when you have a strong collaborative. We applied as a region, 3-county region, for a recompete grant through the EDA. And we talked with the EDA yesterday about, what was it that we didn't get the grant for our region, but they like, hey, it was a super competitive process. We actually have a very strong proposal. What we want to see more of is being specific about what type of businesses are you trying to help and which ones are you not focused on. So I was talking to our colleague at North Valley Drive and like, man, if we applied for this grant today, I think we would have gotten it. And it was like a 50, because we answered all those questions. We can answer them now. We couldn't answer those 6 months ago. Yeah. So that's why I'm excited, because I feel like we're very, from a funding standpoint, we're funding ready. Like we have a strong case for funding for our county. Yeah. Any other questions? So you can find me on our website, stanislaus2030.com. And yeah, if anything percolates, comes up, you're like, hey, talk to this person, I want to know more about that, just let me know. What you're going to see we're going to be talking a lot about childcare this month because we're publishing that report. Next month, we'll spend a lot of time trying to reveal like the work with the small business ecosystem stuff. And then you'll see a lot more around the talent development. So we're really trying to land like 3 planes, but like in a cadence that makes sense. And then moving into what's it going to take to make it happen. So, when you think about like the beginning process, we started here, big ideas. Now we're narrowing our focus and now it's like, let's operation. Okay.
Well, fabulous. That's a lot of info. Yep.
And I just say, Amanda, remember that the Progress magazine the chamber does. So like every time you come out of the report, maybe do so we'd be happy to publish a summary of it and a link to it. Yeah.
We're gonna create like a 4-pager executive summary report, and maybe that could be like a broader for like an article, some easy links and graphics, and we're gonna create a press release. So you don't have to do too much.
And we'll bounce that all out.
But I feel like the small business portfolio would be great. But both are entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, it's nice to be here. Thank you for that.
Thanks,
Thank you. Thank you.